Hello and welcome back to the Essex Allotment farm. For those of you that are new around here, my name is Alex. I am the founder of the Essex Allotment farm, for which in its most part is a Four Seasons market garden selling organic vegetables direct to end consumer through a veg box service and farmers markets. But today I'm at the consultancy site in this fantastic new greenhouse. I'm going to do some seed sowing and most importantly, I'm going to show you how the seedlings are getting on in the greenhouse. I haven't done an update for a few weeks, so I thought it'd be a good time to have a look and see what's going on. So let's get into it. So just before we get into an update, as always, the caveat is that I am lucky on this site that I've got access to a heated greenhouse and that the temperature maintains above 10 degrees overnight and gets up to in the 20s during the day. So my seed sowing times might be different, how far my plants are on might be different to those at home, but it's not a competition, it's just an update on where we are at the new consultancy site. And again, for those who are new to my channel, this is my second site. I'm a consultant here, putting together and leading a team through the first season where we're going to grow organic vegetables to supply the brand new purpose-built cafe on site. So thanks for watching, and little shameless plug at this point, if you're new to my channel, think about subscribing, hit the like, share it, do all that stuff that helps me grow, because it really, really helps me out. So at the moment I am sowing some spring onions. So I sow in these 104 cell trays. We use a seed and cutting compost that we've got from a company called Field Compost, which is local. It's been sat in that wheelbarrow a while, so it's got a little bit dry, so we're just going to soak it through. I've mixed it with vermiculite just to give it, it's quite a heavy soil, it's quite a fine soil, so it gets quite heavy, just to give it some space, some help with the aeration. But other than that, it's simple. I'm just going to give it a real good soak. And then sow some spring onions. So the variety I am growing is White Lisbon. It's a pretty common and well-known variety. I'm, like I said, sowing in these 104 cell trays. I'm multi-sowing, so I'm aiming for 5 seeds per cell. They grow in bunches, and you can harvest the big ones, leave the little ones behind, or let them all grow on and harvest them together. It's just a way of growing more vegetables in smaller spaces. You can interplant them between other plants like lettuces and stuff like that because they're very, very thin. But yeah, that's the way I like to grow spring onions. We will direct sow some on the farm, but here on the consultancy site, we're just going to start them off in seed cells. So I am growing White Lisbon, but I've already sown some ramrod and some, I think it's Lila, which is a red variety. I'm aiming for between 5 and 8 seeds per cell, which if you're good at maths, will give me a lot of seeds. Sorry, no, not a lot of seeds, a lot of spring onions. So I've just got between 5 and 8 seeds in each one of those cells. I'll just top that off with some compost, give it another water, and set that on the stands behind me to germinate. But anyway, let's crack into this seedling update. That's what you're here for. Yeah, let's jump into it. Okay, let's spin you around and we can have a look at what's not germinated first and then onto a seedling update. So let's go. Starting at the bottom here, not germinated. We've got an orange Swiss chard, which I sowed last week. I've never grown the orange variety before, so I'm interested to see what that's like. We've got a Bulgarian giant leek in this one here. Again, this is all last week. These are all sown last week, so there shouldn't be any signs of germination. We've got some mustard tatsoi, mustard mizuna, what does that say? Lettuce, Marvel Four Seasons, lettuce red velvet, lettuce red something or other that I can't see, and scarlet kale. This scarlet kale was sown weeks ago, and I think it's not a particularly great batch of seeds because we have got one or two up, but nothing particularly great, so we might have to re-sow that one. And that was sown at the same time as some other kale up the end here, so I'll give you what the contrast looks like and what it should look like if it was a decent batch of seeds. Anyway, we've got 2 peas next, which are looking great. They're looking really stocky and healthy. They're opening up, not getting too tall too quickly, which means we've got the temperature and sunlight levels about right in here. They're sugar bomb peas. They will actually be 4 peas. The spring onions, as I mentioned, we sown some of them all earlier. This is Snow Queen variety, multi-sown. Some germination differences across the tray. That could be to do with temperature, where they've been moved about, but they're all germinating. They're still coming up, even the ones at the very back. Here, some of them are a bit further along. Might be fresher seed, could be anything. But there we go, multi-sown to get lots and lots of spring onions in small spaces. So there's 2 trays of those. Then we've got some Mikado spinach. Mikado, is that how you pronounce it? 3 trays of that. This is meant to be quite bolt resistant, so would be okay if the temperature turns hotter all of a sudden. They look really healthy, the ones that come up, but again, we've got slight germination issues, patches of germination issues on this one. Again, but there are some behind, a little bit further behind. There's half a chance that I might have planted a few of the seeds too deep and they might be struggling to make it to the surface. That's what I find is probably the issue when I have different levels of germination, if that makes sense. Sometimes that can be one of the issues. But anyway, moving on, we've got cabbage wok bok, which is a Chinese style cabbage. These are super healthy and look great. Short, stocky, true leaves. They're not leggy. They're putting on their true sets. It won't be a million miles away from moving these on to somewhere, planting them somewhere. Yeah, look at that. Their root system looks really, really great. So although they look like a tiny plant, it won't be long until we're thinking about planting those somewhere. That's really cool. I haven't looked at the seeds myself in this level of detail in a while, so that's good to see. So we've got multi-sown beetroot. Again, multi-sown, I find with beetroot that you can sow them in clumps, 2, 3 clumps or beetroots together. Maybe that's a little bit excessive, that one there. That might have 4 or 5. But one like this, 3 beetroots together. That way you get a natural succession. One of them grows quickly, restricts the others to the space, so you twist that one out when it's ready and leave the others behind to grow on. Gives you a natural succession without having to sow different trays of beetroot. But again, they're looking pretty healthy. We've got some chard, rainbow chard, which looks good. It's cute, very cute. The different coloured stems, so we've got yellow stem in there, red stem, so that should be pretty cool. Some with red leaf. So I'm looking forward to that. Next we've got cabbage greyhound, just a little bit slower than the wok bok, sown at a similar time. But again, nothing wrong with those. I will thin those out to 1 per cell. So I tend to oversow. Actually, let me spin the camera around and talk to you about oversowing. So I did have a question from Steve on Steve's Seaside Allotment. Have I got the space to plant all these? And I suppose I should answer that. And the first point and the thought that's triggered the explanation is, a lot of what I've done in here is oversown. I've oversown stuff. What that is to give us the best opportunity to have a great start. This is a brand new site. I've never worked for this person before, so I want to showcase what I can do. Now I could systematically sow exactly what I need, one seed per cell, and save a few pennies here and there by not wasting seeds. But realistically, what we need is the right amount of plants, number of plants to plant out in the field or in the polytunnels. And say I need 100 cabbages, it's better for me to sow 2 trays of 104 cell cabbages and waste 99p on extra seed, just in case, like the spinach, we have germination issues, whether we have pest issues and stuff like that. So there's a lot of oversow. And what's great in my unique situation is that if I do have excellent germination, like on the wok bok, for example, and we only want 100 of those Chinese cabbage for this site, is that I can take those spare plants away to the farm where I've got so much more room and utilise them and grow them on there. So there are elements of oversow in here, and it's the same in each individual cell. So on some of the more iffy germinating types, like cabbages can, for me, be a little bit iffy from time to time, I've sown maybe 2 seeds per cell as opposed to 1, and I'll just snip out the one that looks the weaker of the 2 and grow on 1 per cell. Again, just giving me a better chance to have a full tray of properly germinated seedlings to plant out. Anyway, let's get back to it. My Taunton Dean perennial kale cutting's looking lovely. It's really enjoying the temperature and the levels of light in here. It will get too hot for it in here eventually, so it'll have to go outside, but we've had hardly any sun. And sort of, this is an example of oversowing. When it comes to a red Russian kale, we probably, for this site, probably only need 20 or 30 plants of red Russian kale, maybe 50, but this is 104 cell trays. But if you look at this sort of tray, it gives a prime example of poor and patchy germination, for one, more than 1 seed per cell. But what that does, by doing it that way, even though I've had poor germination, it gives me the opportunity to prick out and move some of these to the cells that aren't occupied, and it gives me the 30 to 50 plants that I need for the red Russian kale for this site. And I'm now not scratching around resowing and trying to play catch up. So that's sort of why I oversow. Anyway, we won't talk about that anymore. This is kalettes and Brussels sprouts sowed at the same time as those other kale, Serbian kale down the bottom end. So you can see why I'm not so impressed with the other one, and the germination hasn't been particularly great, because it should look more like this. If we spin you around the corner, we've got purple sprouting broccoli. That looks like almost perfect. Look at that for germination, so we can go through and do what we talked about. We've got a red cabbage variety here, again looking great and healthy. Multi-sown radish, which grow like lightning. This is cherry bell radish starting to put on their true leaves. So that, again, probably if I pulled out a multi-sown cell, the root system should, in theory, look really healthy. Yeah, look at that, even better than the other one. So they can go out. They could go out now under the right. As long as it's not too wet, too cold, too windy more than anything, they could go out. But they're super hardy, so yeah. And I've got radish outside and in the polytunnels already. So we've got kale, Serbian, again sown at the same time as that other tray of kale. I know it was scarlet that didn't germinate particularly well. So that's a Serbian. We've got another succession of lettuce, little gem here, and Lola Rosso. Lola Rosso have been growing quite slowly. I'm not really sure. Good germination, but quite slow growing. And then we've got my favourite, which is Nipper leeks, which are a super fast, thin, skinny 12-week leek variety, which are looking fantastic. Again, with these, because they are a skinny leek variety, you can get away with multi-sowing them. So there's 1 or 2 seeds per cell there. And they'll stay like that, and we'll grow them on like that. These are our spare broad beans. So we've already planted 3 trays, so 300 plants of broad beans. These are the spare ones. They'll probably go to the farm in the next day or so, because we don't need them. The ones that we've planted out have taken pretty well. We replaced 1 or 2 that have got sort of blown over in the wind. They're looking not particularly great now. They're starting to run out of nutrients. The lower leaves aren't looking great, and they're obviously way too tall. So what I've done is I've pinched those out so that they put on additional growth from the base, and I'll take them across to the farm and use them over there. The last thing that I missed was, that's the tray of spring onions Lisbon that I've just sown. I can use this additional shelving that's underneath to germinate. It doesn't get a great amount of light at this time of year, but they're fine for germinating in the dark. And then next door is the first of the tomato sowings. We've got tomato flame and tomato gold nugget. And that is more about getting some seeds in some soil and seeing if it will germinate in these kind of conditions. I hope you enjoyed that quick seedling update. That's what we've got going on at the moment. It's a big 2 weeks now for sowing. So when we look again in a few weeks' time, all these benches will be full. Probably the underneaths will be full of germination, because it's that time of year where you can really kick on with your seed sowing. So any questions, give me a shout in the comments below. Thanks for watching. And until next time, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.